Hey everyone, and welcome back to our Udio Masterclass. This is part 2. Part 1 you can find linked down below in case you missed it. In part 1, we went over some basics in Udio, namely how you can prompt to create a song and issue commands like verse and chorus. Now, obviously you are not simply limited to verses and choruses. There's a whole list of commands that you can try out. I'm listing them here. You can screenshot it if you want, but I'll also link below Udio's unofficial community tips doc, which has a number of structural indicators and additional descriptors that you can try out. Now, clearly, you're not going to be able to cram all of those commands into one 32-second clip, and that is actually where the Udio 130 model comes into play, because this can generate clips up to 2 minutes and 10 seconds. We can, of course, extend past that, and there is still very much a use case for the 32 as well. But let's give this a shot real quick. So, utilizing the Udio 130 model with some additional commands and kind of a pirate sort of sea shanty theme, you can see here we begin with a spoken line. We have verse 1, a pre-chorus, and a drop as well. And I want to show you this to illustrate exactly how smart Udio can be.
Raise the sails, fly to adventure and glide. On the seas where legends thrive, we set sail our spirits high. With the map and the captain's dream to find the goal, claim the gleam through the storm and crashing waves. We are bound by what we crave in the hard ocean's light. We'll find treasure in the night.
So I just want to point out that, yes, we did get the spoken line, verse 1, and the pre-chorus. But what was interesting is that Udio was smart enough to put the drop in at the "we'll find treasures in the night." We actually have it listed after that. And actually, I just realized I did not put a closed bracket there. And it was actually smart enough to know what I wanted. But for rhythmic purposes, it actually put it at the "we'll find treasures in the night" line. So yeah, that kind of cool. If you want to listen to the entire Legends of the Sea, I'll have it published up. I'll show you also how to do that in just a minute. Very briefly, one thing that kind of amazed me in terms of the 130 model's context window, I did a project for my kids' swim team, put in the names of 72 different kids, and had Udio write a boastful rap song about their undefeated season. And indeed, it got all 72 kids. So yeah, you can push it a little bit further than you might think. So once we have either a 30-second clip or like a 2-minute song that we like, but we want to continue working on it, all we have to do is come down. This is Endless Echo. This is like a dream pop song that I put together earlier. If you push the extend button here, everything will repopulate here. Let's take a quick listen to Endless Echo.
Caught in time, the echoes of your life fade again, eternal climb. The clock is spent, my friend, and reverse. It's time to break the chain.
Yeah, you get the idea, kind of an ethereal dream pop song. From here, we can choose our extension placement, either putting a section after it, putting a section before it, adding an intro to it, or adding an outro. In this case, I hit add selection and just simply hit the extend button. And indeed, we now have 2 versions of Endless Echo that now run at a minute.
Round and round we keep on turning, life's rewind, trees keep on burning.
Now, in our original version of Endless Echo, the 30-second version, it actually ends with kind of this delay synth part. Let's take a listen to that real quick.
This has no end in sight.
Now, if I really like that section and want to expand upon that, one of the things I can do is come to the crop and extend function. You simply hit this slider, turn it on here, and you'll see, we have our full waveform of the 30-second song. Now, what I can do is just move the sliders along here and find the spot, and I think that's mostly delay. We'll double check that real quick. From there, we simply hit the extend button, and in a few moments, we have a new song that begins with that section. I was a little sloppy with the crop, but this will show you what it does. Now, granted, that is a different song, but that's actually the point of this. Briefly, before we move on to advanced features, I did want to bring up manual mode, which you can toggle on with this switch. Here, you aren't going to be prompting with natural language. Instead, you can prompt via keywords. The advantage here is that you can, really genre mash here and actually call out specific instruments as well, as I did here with dark synth, post bop, and trumpet. So running this, let's see what we get. Pretty cool. Definitely very much gives me all of like the 80s cyberpunk sci-fi vibes. Now, under advanced features, we have a number of options here. You can switch back and forth between the 1.5 model or the 0.1 model. Personally, I've just been keeping everything on the 0.5 model. Your prompt strength slider, you can take up to, high or low, obviously. I think it defaults at 50%. As a note, the higher that you crank this, the more the output will adhere to your prompt, but you may end up with artifacting or some unrhythmic things. Your lyric strength, which also defaults at around 50%, if you crank that up higher, you will get better pronunciation of your lyrics, but you do run the risk, once again, of things sounding a little less natural and less rhythmic and in key. Seed is a concept that comes out of diffusion models. I'm not going to get too deep into this right now, but the way that it basically works is that everything begins with sort of a spattering of static, and then from there, a AI model then hallucinates in that static to build off of the prompt and create something. It's kind of like staring at a cloud and seeing a shape. So if you're ending up with generations that are kind of sounding very similar, one of the things that you can do is just hit this randomize button here, the dice button here, and you'll end up with different seed numbers. So that'll end up switching up essentially the overall output. Start is, where your song actually begins. This is a thing for the Udio 32 model. If you crank it all the way to 0, the song will begin at the beginning, and obviously the higher that you crank it, the further along in the song it will begin generating. This is helpful if you're looking for an idea for a song that you do plan on extending, for a beginning section, an intro section, and an outro section. If you're in the 130 model, this changes to clip timing, in which you can change where your song will either begin or end. So if you are doing a 2-minute song that you know that you want to turn into like a 15-minute jazz epic, you may want to start off with something like the beginning of the song is at 0 and then it ends at the 25% mark. Lyric timing is also in the 130 model. This lets Udio know where the singer should begin singing. So if you are doing something like, Jazz Odyssey, and you want a long drawn out 1-minute instrumental, set the lyric timing here for 50 seconds or 60 seconds into the song. And then at that point, the lyrics won't start being sung until 60 seconds into the song. Clarity is the fidelity of your instrumentation output. The higher that you put it, obviously the more clear things will be, but once again may come at the cost of sounding less natural. It defaults around the 23%, I believe. So I would play with it in this range. I wouldn't crank it all the way up to high. Now, one setting that I do recommend that you crank up is generation quality. It defaults at high, but you can crank it up to ultra. Now, that does come at the cost that your output will be slower to render, but it's really not that long. So, I just always crank it up to ultra and just leave it there. So that should give you a pretty good handle on crafting music in Udio. But in part 3, we have one of my favorite features, namely the ability to upload your own material and do all sorts of interesting things. Can't wait for you to check it out. I'll see you over in part 3.